So this week we are going to work on lighting and materials for our Unity scene. I'm going to go in depth with materials and lighting, and that is going to transform the way that our levels look, hopefully for the better. No, definitely for the better. Don't worry about it. Okay, something to notice right off the bat is these flickering lights. Why is that happening? If we look over here, it's even worse. And that is because there are a maximum of 4 pixel lights in our scene available at any time. And if you go to your project settings under Edit, Project Settings, and I like to drag that behind the scene view. If you go to Quality, I think it's Quality. Maybe it's Graphics. Okay, hold on a second. Okay, so if you go to the Edit, Project Settings, and Graphics, and select your scriptable render pipeline settings, Universal Render Pipeline, High Quality, that will select it in the project folder. And there are several different levels that we can use for the Universal Render Pipeline. If you select the Universal Render Pipeline High Quality in the inspector, under Lighting, we can select additional lights, a total of up to 8, which is not as many as I thought they initially had. So likely what we're going to do is we're going to go to the prefab for the torch and just set the light to be static. So just baked light. That will make it so that it's baked and that it will look good, and that's all we need. So there's 3 kinds of modes for lights. You can have real-time, so that you get real-time shadows and all of that. You can have mixed, which has real-time shadows, but also the soft baked lighting. And then you can have baked light. So that's how we'll fix that. And I'll leave it as is for now. So let's talk about lights first. I am going to go into this room and talk about lights. So game object, light, and we can pick a directional light. Directional light you will use like the sun. It casts light. All of the rays of the sunlight are in the same direction. All of the shadows you see everywhere go in the same direction. Occasionally you can build a 2 or 3 point lighting system by duplicating it and then giving yourself shadows in a different direction. But they're really only built for sunlight, so we're not going to use them in the indoor level. Our second light is the point light. It casts light in every direction. You can change the range of the light to be brighter or so larger or less large. That also affects the brightness of that light. You can also change the brightness based on the intensity. So if you need really dim lights, you can set those to be dim. I'm going to change the range back to 10, and the intensity can go, down to 0, obviously, and then up to, I think, infinity. I'm not sure what the upper range of that is. So we'll change it back to the default, which is 2. And we can change the color to anything that we might like. The floors, well, the ceiling is white, so it should cast roughly the same color. But if we just bring this around, we can get rainbow lights. So we'll pick this one. I like a good orange light paired with a good blue light. That can look quite good. But for now, we'll just leave that as is and move on to the next light, which is the spotlight. The spotlight shines light in a direction, but it doesn't work like the directional light does, in that the shadows get larger as it goes on. So I'll show you an example. So this is a real-time light, so I can build a 3D object cube and begin to cast lights. If this was a small cube, for example, the amount of space that this cube would take up shadow-wise would change depending on how close or far away it was from the light itself. So small light, large light, small shadow, large shadow. That's what I'm trying to show off there. The spotlight has a softness slider. It didn't used to, which is really nice. So you can have a really sharp shadow here, where the angle for the inner and the outer are the same, or you can make it very soft. And I always appreciate a nice soft light. I usually like to put these at 180 degrees. Let's try, 90 degrees, maybe 270. So pointing straight up. And then you can place them on the walls, and we can make them much softer there, and maybe decrease the intensity quite a bit so that they're just kind of casting this soft light here. And I love to duplicate these and just have them all kind of cast along the entire wall. That's a really nice look. We can select all 4 of the lights at the same time and edit their properties all together. As long as they have the same components, you can edit all 4 of the components at the same time. Do we have any more lights to cover? So there's an area light. It's only visible in baked. It's not a real-time light, but it will let you cast light from an area. Let's see if we can build a new scene real quick to try to test that out. So I'm going to build a plane. And duplicate it and make it a wall. And we'll just have these 2 here. So these are baked, and I'll build a area light. And it's baked only, so we'll go to lighting and we'll generate lighting. Save the scene as light tests. This light is not very bright, apparently. Can we get you closer to the wall? Will that make a difference? Okay, so I'm starting to see a little bit of light from this there. Let's go ahead and make the intensity 20. So that's much better. And it's also, it's very soft shadows. So let's go ahead and build a 3D object cube and set it to static. And what we should notice, what we'll hopefully notice, is that the shadows on this cube are very soft as well, because the area light is casting light not from an infinitely small pinprick, but from an area. And so for this shadow here, most of the light is here, only half of the light is here, and none of the light is here. So area lights can be very nice, but they're only for baked lighting. Just something to keep in mind. If we were to make that twice as large, we could maybe zoom it out a bit more and bake it one more time. So, there you are. Let's cancel that, save the changes, and go back to our original scene. So the next thing I want to talk about is a light cookie. The idea is that you have a black and white image that allows light through some part and blocks light through other parts. I will show you what I mean. They work great. They work best on spotlights. So we'll make one face the wall. And they are really cool, but they are not available in the Unity render pipeline, so I guess we won't talk about it right now. Sorry. You can see here that they're not supported, but they are supported for the built-in render pipeline. They do stuff like this, which is allow some light in some areas and not so much light in other areas. All right. So I guess that brings us to materials. So let's talk about materials for a moment. I'm going to create a sphere in my scene. Let's go ahead and light it with one of these spotlights so that we can see a little bit more. So let's take a new light. We'll just, a new material. And we'll just call this test material. Or just new material. That works fine. Let's apply it to this sphere. So things that we can mess with. We can mess with how metallic the material is. We can change the tint to any color that we like. We've already done that somewhat. And we can change the smoothness to make it very smooth or not at all smooth. If we use the metalness, most materials are either completely metal or not at all metal. It's just based on what they're made of. So if you are trying to make something that's a metal material, just make it 1. And if it's not material, if it's not metal, then make it 0. But we can also bring in textures of our own or textures that we find on the internet. If we looked at, Google image search for pebbles, we might get something like this image. And maybe we could save this image. Pebbles. I don't know if that's the full resolution. No, it's much smaller, 225. Okay. But let's bring this pebbles image into our assets folder. And if we wanted, we could just drag it onto our object. And that would not work, would it? Interesting. So what I want to do is I want to take this pebbles image and I want to put it in the base map for this material. So here's this base map box right here. That's where I want to put the pebbles. And we can actually search for it. If you see this little circle with a dot in it, you can click on that and it will open up a new window and allow us to search for pebbles like that. And voila, our pebbles exists on this texture. And now we can take this pebbles material and we can apply it to the floor. And who knows, yeah, it's not seamless, so you're gonna see the lines between the two. But let's talk about what we can do with this texture a little bit more. So I don't want it to be smooth. You can see how you've got reflections on this. That doesn't really match the texture that we have, so I'm gonna make this not do that. And it's also pretty low resolution. If I had gotten a higher resolution image, like 1000 by 1000, this would have looked a lot better. But it's only 225 or something like that. So let's just increase the tiling. If you look further down, there's the tiling and the offset. And you can play with this. Let's tile it by 2 by 2. Okay, much better. Let's try 3 by 3. We are seeing the seams in our image. And we're seeing that, you know, this area is a little bit whiter, a little bit brighter than this area here. But even so, it can make this whole room look significantly more different. Let's search for pebbles. And that can be a really fun thing to play with. But we can do even more, actually. So let's have a look at this image. It looks very flat, and there's something called a normal map that we can use. I am going to duplicate this pebbles by duplicating it, and I'm going to change this name to pebbles in RM for normal. And then I'm going to go to the texture type in the inspector and change it from default to normal map and create from grayscale right here. We're going to change this to let's say 0.1 and hit apply. And that's going to change this image from what used to be a pebbles texture to a purple texture. And what this does is it creates a bump for our texture. Let me show you what I mean. If we drag this pebbles normal to the normal map spot, you can see that it starts to add shadows. It's much more obvious on this over here. Let's move this here. So if we look at this material and we change the strength of the normal map, so this is what it looks like without a normal map, and this is what it looks like with a normal map. There's shadows added to each one of these. And if we change the tiling back to 1, it'll be even more obvious that it's creating shadows for the pebbles that are on there. And this is hugely beneficial in order to add realism. So that's the bit. What I'd like you to do for your... okay, so one more thing. We can go to our floor texture and add a normal map to it, even though it doesn't have a base texture. And look, this noise will show up on the floor everywhere that we've got it. And now it just kind of looks like painted pebbles, and maybe it needs to be duplicated a little bit more, and maybe the normal map is too strong, so we'll set it to something like 0.4 or 0.2, but then maybe we'll increase the tiling to something like 0.4. And we could even change this to something like 20. And now we've got this micro texture that's barely visible, and if we increase the smoothness of it, you start to see that it affects the way that light bounces off of it. You see that? And so when I'm playing this game, you may or may not even notice that it has a texture until you get up really close to it, or until you see a light. You see that now. It adds a whole bunch of just magic to your scene in a really just delightful way. As that shows up, it's beautiful. So adding textures, even simple ones. One of the ones I like to look for is blue noise. It's supposed to be noise that's built to tile well, and not be noticeable that it's tiling. One of the things that you can search for when you are looking for these textures is seamless. Let's So this one looks pretty good. Can I open this image in a new tab? Perfect. Let's save this image. Perfect. And back here, blue noise tiled. And so I'm just going to take this to be a normal map by default, create from grayscale, and set its amount down to 0.1. Otherwise, it can be a little bit too strong. And we'll go to our floor, go ahead and apply that. And we'll change this normal map to be the noise map for the floor. And it doesn't need to be tiled nearly as much, so maybe 2 by 2. Maybe 5 by 5. So, find a bunch of images, seamless images, and download them and put them in your project. One of my favorite places to go is Polyhaven. You can go to textures and get them for free and bring them in image by image. So let's pick a nice brick texture, shall we? And I'm going to download a zip of the images. And which images do I want? I don't want the blend or the GLTF. I don't need the ambient occlusion. The roughness and metallic is nice. We can leave that. The diffuse we definitely want. That's the color. Displacement we can use or not use. Normal, we do want at least one normal map. And then there's a roughness map we probably don't need. So let's try downloading this and seeing what we can get. I'm going to get this in a 1K texture so that the file size isn't so large. And let's save this file and have a look at it. Brick wall, extract all, textures, and I'm going to bring all 3 of these in to my Unity project. So I'll just use the diffuse and drag it onto the scene, which doesn't actually do what I need it to, but it does create a new material quickly for me. And there's the base map. Can I shine some light on this? There we go. So first things first, I need to rotate all my quads. And secondly, it's a brick texture, so it shouldn't have any roughness. This arm texture might work as a normal. Let's apply it as a normal map and see what we get. No, that doesn't seem right. So let's go for this displacement as the height map. And that can fake a little bit of distance where there isn't any. And that can be really nice. I think we can also, if we duplicate this, I don't know if the EXR will work. Let's find out. Yeah, it shows up as a normal map. That's great. So let's change this to a normal map and hit apply. And then on our brick wall, drag the normal map here. And you want to be sure that you're getting your shadows in the right direction. So sometimes you'll want to select this light and make sure that you're getting darkness down here instead of up at the top. So sometimes you'll go negative with your normal map. See how you're getting shadows up here? That's not right. So let's do it the other way and get your shadows down there on the right spot. And there we have this very realistic looking brick wall, which I think I will attach to most of these. It's a shame that all of my walls are sideways. We can at least rotate these around their pivot points. like that. And there we go, brick room. Okay, happy texturing, and I'll see you next time.